Hey everybody, just like you, every summer I wrestle with finding the balance, right? We want our kids to enjoy summer vacation, but the game calls to us. How long should we take off before we get them back in the game? And that's one of the reasons we really love what NHL Sense Arena is doing this offseason. They've rolled out new monthly training packs to give players a structured plan to follow all summer, so you're not wondering what they should be working on. They've also added creator packs featuring drills from NHL goaltenders Devin Cooley, Joey Decord, along with Brody True's Summer Skills Pack. It's a fun way for players and goalies to work on their hockey IQ, decision making, stick handling, reactions, and game situations right from their home in just 10 or 15 minutes. Perfect to keep them away from the ice, but get that hockey in. So if you've been thinking about trying Sense Arena, now is the time. Their off-season prices is always the lowest of the year, and Our Kids Play Hockey listeners can save an additional $25 with the promo code OKPH. So head over to hockey.sensearena.com, use that promo code OKPH, and keep your players sharp all summer long. Check out that website, then come on back and get yourselves sharp with this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. This episode is powered by NHL Sense Arena. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Elias, joined by Mike Bonelli and Christie Casciano-Burns. If you listened to our show before, we've touched on skate sharpening in several episodes over the years, but today we're doing it. We're doing something we've never done before. We're dedicating an entire conversation to one of the most important and most misunderstood parts of hockey equipment. Ask a hockey player about their stick. They'll know every detail. They'll know the flex. They'll know the curve. They'll know the materials. They'll know who makes it. It's actually kind of annoying because the player makes the stick, not the other way around. But then you ask them about their skates and the sharpening, and you might hear, I don't know. We just hand it to the guy. My parents just hand it to the guy, and they do that. Truth is, skate sharpening can have a huge impact on confidence, turning, stopping, acceleration, overall feel on the ice, amongst other things. And today, with different types of steel, new blade profiles, and more sharpening options than ever before, it can be confusing for families to know what's exactly the best for their player. We're going to answer all those questions today because our guest is Russ Layton, founder and CEO of Sparx Hockey, a company all of you have heard of. And it's one that's helping change the way hockey families think about skate sharpening through consistency, education, and innovation. And I should throw in there and ease as well, right? Today, we're going to answer the questions every hockey family has about skate sharpening. How often to sharpen? How to choose the right hollow? Do you even know what a hollow is? What's the different steel options? How many players can understand the connection between their skates and their performance? All that's coming up on today's episode. But first, let's welcome the guest. Russ, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Russ, we're so excited to have you here. We've been talking about having you on for months now. We finally landed this show.
It only took 6 years.
It only took 6 years. I hope you're ready for it because we're going to pepper you with dozens of questions. So let's get started. Lee touched on it. Misconceptions. What do you think the biggest misconception families have, youth hockey families have, about skate sharpenings? You have the floor.
So I would say the biggest one, and like the first question that a lot of people ask is they will say, well, how often should I get my skate sharpened? That comes up all the time. It comes up with decisions of how to get your skate sharpened. Do you purchase a skate sharpener? Do you go to a store? And I think the one, like the aha moment that a lot of people have when I say this, the biggest one is around it's not a number of hours that you should skate on your skates between skate sharpenings. A lost edge can happen at any point. It could even happen, you get your skate sharpened, you're tying them in the locker room and you step on the wrong thing in the locker room and you haven't even ever put a stride on that skate sharpening and it's trash. This especially comes up with kids because kids probably aren't paying as close attention to where their feet are and they're monkeying around in the locker room and stuff, playing with their buddies and pushing each other around and stuff. And you can step on somebody else's skate that's sitting there or somebody else's stick. I know as somebody that's been doing this now for, full time in my life for over 10 years, even when I sharpen my skates, I very carefully get onto the bench. I very carefully put my feet on the mat. I make sure I'm not stepping in any gaps between mat. I'm not stepping on anything under the bench. And even then I can lose an edge because I skated on something that I shouldn't have or stepped on something that I shouldn't have. So biggest misconception is it's some formula like 4 hours or 5 hours. It's really, as soon as you feel you've lost an edge, that's now you need a skate sharpening.
Yeah. I mean, this is so like from my point of view, and I think from, my history of coaching. So I've worked, I think when we had Russ in with Sparx, I had at the time been working with tens of thousands of coaches. That's not even a joke. Tens of thousands of coaches. We had Sparx in, Russ in, the whole group in to a USA hockey clinic 10 years ago, maybe, right, Russ? And it was like, it was the hardest clinic. It was the hardest subject to get into the clinic and get approved. And at the end of the clinic, it was the most requested feedback and follow-up presentation that we did. And this was a level 4 clinic. So this is like 500 coaches. And the lack of education around probably the most important performance piece of equipment was startling to me. I mean, it kind of opened my eyes up because, again, I wasn't really a skate geek, but I grew up in a pro shop. So I sharpened skates my whole life. So I understood what Russ is talking about, I think, for every parent to, and Russ, can you just talk a little bit about, like, what is the way? It's not hours, but what is the way, without cutting your finger open, to look and examine and see your blade. And I think before, and again, we can get to it a little bit later too, but just understanding the little nuances of what, burrs are and how that affects performance. And I think because, again, like when we had Russ in, it was, like I said, it was one of those kind of things where it was like, just talk about blades. And I think the coaches were mesmerized by the fact that it's something they've been missing this whole time. And it probably was the easiest thing for them to fix because they didn't have to be an expert in it. They could go to somebody like Russ. Yeah.
I'd say, if you have level edges and your edge is, and everybody, the fingernail test is tried and true. I still use it to this day. So if you have level edges and the fingernail tests works down the blade, your edges are really good and reliable. And usually what happens is how you need a skate sharpening, I alluded to in a second ago. I mean, every hockey player knows this feeling that you lose that edge and you go to turn towards that direction and you're just nothing there and you just fall. And there's really it's a very catastrophic failure. Like it doesn't, Christie, another misconception along the lines of how many hours is like that your edges gradually like get duller, like a kitchen knife. Like if you have a kitchen knife sitting around, like when it's sharp because it's beautiful and it just cuts whatever you're cutting, but then you just have to put more energy into it as time goes on and the knife's just not as efficient. That's kind of not how skates work. It's not like they just get duller and duller and duller and then you have to sharpen them. It's usually like a catastrophic failure caused by kicking or stepping on something you shouldn't have. And when you have that failure and then you take your skate off, whatever side you fell on, you will go to that edge and you'll shave nail all the way up until right where the edge is gone. And then it's totally smooth. Like your nail just rides right over that edge. And it's so apparent. Like it's like every single, and I've been doing this again for over a decade. Every time I lose an edge, I'm like, okay, does my theory work? Whichever side that I lost, I go shave, boop. It just slides like it's ice. Huh. And so there's 100% correlation between like you fell, lost edge, no fingernail. And then you basically have to sharpen again and deburr, take the burr off after sharpening. So when you sharpen a skate, there's a little remnant piece of metal that's extruded out of the hollow. So when you sharpen and deburr and you get a nice clean edge the whole way down that shaves a little bit of fingernail, your edges are perfect again. And you can go skate with confidence and turn and be aggressive and rely on your skates different than you did the last time you skated where, you learned you couldn't turn left or couldn't turn right anymore.
You're right, Russ. There's a feeling. Every hockey player knows that feeling of losing an edge. And if it happens in a game, you enter a panicked state. I guess pun intended on that one. and you got to figure it out. So for the audience here, let's do this. Let's not assume they know anything about skate sharpening, right? Because I know there's someone sitting there, they're going, what do you balanced edges? Bird.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's walk through the skate blade. And let's walk through like what you're doing a little bit now. Like what is a proper sharpening? Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to, because I should have prepared for this, but
it's okay.
So here's the ice. I'm going to just draw a little picture. Like, the blue is the ice.
Right.
And the green, obviously it looks like this in real life. Oh, that didn't matter. It flipped it over.
Yeah, and for those of you listening right now, he's drawn a flat line, and then there's a skate blade with a hollow on it, which is like a little half oval on it, just so you can understand.
So
if you're watching,
your blade is an arc, right? It's not a flat surface, and that arc has two edges, 2 points, right? Your left edge and your right edge, and that's what gives you the ability to turn and to stop. If you didn't have those, you would just slide.
Correct.
So when you sharpen your skates, you are putting that hollow into the blade. And the depth of that hollow governs how much grip you have. And so at the highest levels, people are optimizing their skate sharpening to put the shallowest hollow, the flattest hollow. So remember what I said, it's not flat. You want to get as flat as you can get, because you'll go the fastest with the least amount of resistance in the ice.
Right.
But you will put a deeper hollow if you want grip. And so you're balancing, we call it grip and glide. And so when you get a skate sharpening, you are putting that very even hollow down the length of your blade to a depth that is appropriate for your skill level, your weight, your preference from a skating standpoint.
Right. Now, let me dive in here, because this is one of the most important things that we try and tell parents. And Mike has said it many times. If you walk into a skate sharpening situation and they don't ask you what hollow, they don't ask you how you want it done, you need to leave. Okay. Now, some of this is a result. Yes, play that song right now. Some of this is a result of, Russ, to be fair, you've disrupted skate sharpening in the best way possible, where people are just far more educated now about hollows, about what's going on. I think when we were all growing up, is you went to the magical Zamboni room, or you went to the magical pro shop guy, and he did it, and you had no idea what he was doing it at. But most people got it done at a half. That's usually like the hollow that's kind of like the default. Right. But what's happening now is I find you have a lot of amateur skate sharpening people out there that I know someone the other day, they came to me and they I can't skate. This guy's sharpening my skates and can't skate. I said, what hollow did they use? And they said, well, I don't know, but I feel like I can't even turn on the ice. Yeah. And what I came to find out is they were using something like a 3/8 or even more. And it was not appropriate for this skater. Right. So I said, you need to go back and ask for a half or a 5/8. And again, parents, you should, all you got to do to look these up, by the way, is just go on Google and search skate hollows or radius of hollows, and you'll find all the different ones. Okay. But if you've got someone new to skating and they've got an extreme hollow, you're going to have a hard time skating. Adversely, if you go to almost no hollow, you're going to have a hard time skating. You got to find what works for you. Okay. That's the first part of this. All right. And when you find it, you'll know. All right. So it's so important you know that hollow and that you ask for it. If you don't want your kids to get their skate sharpened and come running back to you saying, hey, these are horrible, this is something you need to know. All right. I also don't ever recommend getting your skate sharpened at the away rink. I recommend you have one of these machines in your house, but we'll get to that later. Go ahead, Russ.
Right. And half is the usually the go-to one, right?
That's the default, I think. Yeah. Everybody's, like it depends.
My kids always like half.
I think, Christie, most people haven't tried anything beyond a half.
Right.
And I think that's where I tell people, if you're going to start somewhere, start there, and then you can start to experiment a little bit. Because I like 5/8, right? Like I'm a little bit up the chart a little bit. Yeah. Go ahead, Russ. Sorry.
What's interesting is like a little bit of the entrepreneurship story here is when I was struggling to get my skate sharpened, and then I had a child. And then I was struggling to get their skate sharpened. That's when I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to be able to control this, because I don't really have the time to go as often as I would like to. I really like sharp skates and well-maintained skates. And it was just wearing on me how many times I would have to do this. And I was like, I have every other tool. I want a tool to do this at home. When I started, and now this is like anywhere from like 2001 to 2012 is when I was like having these kind of like these thoughts about building this myself. And when I started digging into it, there was so much to learn.
Yeah.
like that I've been skating my whole life. Like, and like you said, like all of this was completely like I wasn't exposed to any of the concepts of skate sharpening by the people that were doing it, probably on purpose a little bit. You know, it was something black box. I give my skates, they sharpen them, and I trust them, and they give them back. And there was this reciprocal kind of trust thing going on there.
Yep.
And so I was relying on them, and they weren't trying to educate me. And so I would get what I got, and I was happy with it. But when I started digging into it, and like I learned about the hollow, and then I learned about how you could make it sharper or flatter for speed. And there was actually, this is probably something your viewers or listeners may resonate with. I always had an engineering mind. And so I would like lose my edge often, and it would upset me that I would have to be inconvenienced to go get my skate sharpening. And so my mind went like, okay, I'll make my skate sharper so that it holds the edge longer. And like, this was the math I did in my head. Like,
we've all done that.
I said to the guy, I said, like, I keep losing my edge. How can you make them sharper? And he was like, yeah, I'll make them sharper. And then he's like, you 7/16 or 3/8 or something like that. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And it didn't solve the problem. But what I learned later was all it did was give me more friction and kind of make my skating worse, because when you lose your edge, it doesn't matter if it's a 3/8, a 5/8, a 3/4, a 1 inch. If you step on the wrong thing and lose your edge, you're falling. It doesn't, you can't make them sharper because, as I said before, it's not a kitchen knife that wears down over time. And so I was struggling with that. But once I started digging into like how hollows work, and then there was actually like different sharpening shapes, like flat bottoms, that I was like, as an engineering kind of thinking person, I was like, this is amazing. I have to share this with other people. Like I'm learning all this stuff. And I think everybody I skate with would love to know this. And so that's where I was like, oh my God, if we build this product and we educate people, like it'll just create this whole generation of people who take sharpening into their own hands and optimize it for their ability and their desires on the ice, and don't lose edges. And so the point you're raising is amazing, because I was in the exact same spot 50 years ago.
I mean, the other thing that's crazy about it to me is there's so much emphasis on sticks, and I'm not going to say sticks are not important. Like, you know, there's a feel to it, but I'll say what I said in the intro again, which is like the player makes the stick much more than the stick makes the player. Skates are a little bit of a different deal here. All right. Because like, again, the metaphor I always use, it's like if you have a really tripped out car, right? Like you can have a really cool looking car, but if your tires aren't working or you don't have wheels on the car, it doesn't matter how cool the car looks, right? You got to take care of the wheels. That's why we metaphor call the skates your wheels, right? So that's an important part. You know, Russ, you also brought up some other things too, profiling, right? And things like, there's so much stuff here now that I think parents should know about. Why don't you dive into what a profile is and why that's important?
So as we talked, so if you're skating forward, your inside to outside shape is your hollow, right? So that's the thing that you're stopping with or turning with. But in the other direction, from heel to toe, you can change that shape of the blade. This has been, going on for decades. There are various shapes that have been tried. Everything from the pros down to youth, different percentages of participants mess with profiling or experiment with profiling. The manufacturers of these blades are putting out profiles now that have had a decade or more of experimentation. And so I think the profiles that most of the manufacturers are putting out are generally desirable. And actually, if you were to scan, say, the leading skate blade and skate manufacturers' skate blades, those stock profiles kind of match very closely to the most specified non-stock profile. So I'd say those two are converging. Even in the NHL, there's a lot of disagreement, I would say, or not inconsistency with how important profiling is, because the stock profiles are so close to what people are specifying. at Sparx, we've not kind of dove into making a profiling machine or advocating for profiling because, when you speak to the market, even an educated market, you get a very split kind of answer of how important that is. I would just say that you can affect profile, the shape from the heel to the toe. Most stock profiles match pretty much what most of the people who are profiling are putting on. And then there are other things that contribute to, why are we messing with profiling? We're changing the stance of the player on the ice, and we're affecting the shape and the length of the blade that's touching the ice, right? If you make the shape so that the amount of blade touching the ice is very short, you're going to have a skate that's very dynamic. It's not going to be very stable standing up because you're going to be either leaning forward or leaning back. You're not going to feel secure, but then you can make the blade really long where it touches the ice, and now you don't feel very maneuverable. So there's kind of a sweet spot that everybody's narrowed in on. And so that's profiling. It's changing that. And then the last thing I was going to say was so many other things affect this. The footbed of the skate, the thickness of your socks, your biomechanics, your posture, whether or not the blade holder, usually the white part above the blade, what angle that is relative to the boot. All of those things are playing in here. And I think most of the manufacturers have kind of found, if you will, like vanilla. They've found the thing that's the least offensive to everyone.
I think, and you can go down the rabbit hole of profiling, right? And talk about all the different, why players use blades certain ways, what their profile is, at what age do you get a profile. But I think like for our audience, and I think what you're saying too, Russ, is like the majority of the players that go in skates. Can you just talk a little bit about like the fact is the skates, the most important piece of that cycle, right, are level and sharp blades. Like that's 100%. The most important. Like no matter what profile you have, if you have the greatest profile in the world and the blades aren't level, the edges, like you're talking about that diagram, right? That those two edges don't meet together, then whatever profile you have is irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
100%.
So I think for our audience and people listening and getting down, and I think it's gotten maybe a little more complex because back in the day, it was like you got one set of steel. It was on your skates. That was it. If it got dull, you had to wait for the like Lee's saying, wait for the Zamboni guy to get off, and hopefully the machine's there and somebody can sharpen your skates. But can you talk a little bit about like how the technology now has allowed like families and especially like a unit like a Sparx machine has allowed families now to almost experiment a little bit more at again, it's not free, but it's a lower cost of saying, hey, I'm in a blade. I've got 2 or 3 sets of steel. I'm stuck in Oshkosh and not no offense to Oshkosh, but I'm stuck somewhere where I can't get my skates sharpened. I've seen this with the highest level players, right? That they go to a showcase or they go to a tryout and they've got steel. It's none of it sharpened. It's not ready to go, and they lose an edge, and they're stuck because they're somewhere that doesn't have a machine.
I got to say real quick, Mike, just for the audience listening, because I'm trying to think about things people might not be aware of, right? It's important to know that, most skates today can change steel. You can bring 3 or 4 different pieces of steel and flip them out in a game. Like when we were growing up, that wasn't the case, right? So I think
that's my point. I guess that's my question to Russ then would be if you're able to switch steel, and again, I'm assuming everybody knows, they look at their kids' skates, they say, there's a little trigger there, I can pop the blade out, or I can unscrew it, I can change my blade. How beneficial and fun is it really when you're educating yourself like when you geek out about like, oh my God, I want to know all about blades, like how easy it is to tell and say, hey, I'm going to try my son or daughter in a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 or this or that, like the flexibility of doing that with a machine that can do that, within minutes.
Yeah. So I would say a couple things. One is like, get a sharpener. As a hockey parent, a hockey player for 4+ decades, like not having a skate sharpener at home it just doesn't even make sense because of what we talked about earlier. You can lose an edge the instant you're putting your skates on. You haven't even stepped on the ice. So it's impossible really, to really count on a third party and their hours and all that stuff to maintain skates, because the edges just go at any moment. The thing you raised, Mike, about skates across the board now. When we started Sparx, the advent of the trigger steel, we call it, that was just getting going.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time you only had certain models. Now you almost can't buy skates that don't have removable steel. And just as a quick aside, like when we started Sparx, professional hockey teams would travel like a touring band. Like they would have these huge cases with sharpeners, and they'd load them onto airplanes, and they'd have to look at the weight of the plane carrying ability and figure out how much. Like teams don't travel with sharpeners anymore. They just travel with steel, right? So they'll travel with like 5 to 10 sets of steel for every player on the road. Okay, so back to skates. So you should have a sharpener because you can lose your edge anytime. You can have multiple sets of steel. And one thing that's really, really, I'd say you can feel it is if you're, especially in the practice setting, if you're on, we talked about before, or you guys set it up like 5/8 or half, you can then experiment like at a practice, right. You can go up or down a 16th, like whether or not you feel, and it's usually up in hollow. You want to flatten the edges out. So you've usually honed in on a 1/2 inch or 5/8. And then when you're going to practice, you should explore going 1/16 flatter until the trade-off of getting flatter results in you not feeling as aggressive cornering and stopping. Because as you go flatter in the straightaway, when you're chasing somebody down or you're on a breakaway, you're going to have less resistance and you're going to get ultimately faster peak speed. So I would say, going back to what Mike said to set this up, was like, forget about profile, forget about footbeds, forget about even like the quality of the skate from an initial standpoint. Even the $1,500 top of the line skates right now, if you have lost an edge, they're useless. So you'd be much better off with $300 skates and properly sharpened skate blades than $1,500 skates with a lost edge.
I'm so glad you said that. Parents are thanking you right now.
100%. And yeah. And so I would say kind of what you guys said is like, first and foremost, recently sharpened edges that are level and sharp the whole way down. And your athlete, your player is going to feel confident, is going to be able to turn and stop and not worry.
All right. I have a question about, go ahead.
So I'm just saying, my only public service statement would be too, like when I'm working with players that are still growing, like somebody that doesn't somebody that's not in a skate, the skates, and Russell alluded to it, the skates are so well made now. Like they're made to last. Like back in the day, you're not using Cooper Roos, right? That are falling like you get a season out of them, and the leather's falling apart. Like these skates,
turbos that are made out of like an injection molded piece of plastic or something.
What about mega skates if we're going here? Like, come on.
Right, but I mean, it's just so I would always invest in. Me personally, when I tell every one of my student athletes and anybody that's playing, invest in even a used boot, the best quality boot you could get at the lower cost range, but invest in multiple sets of steel. Like if you're going to put your money into your feet, 100%. Put them into the piece that really, really does affect.
Right.
Especially these kids that go to a tournament for a whole weekend. Imagine this: you go there and you got one blade, and like Russ said, you're all excited to you're up in Can-Am, you run out and you step right in between the rubber mat and you whack your edge, and your whole weekend's gone. It's over. And the dads are in there they're using every kind of re-edger there is. You're not getting it back. And I think that, again, there's little fixes we could talk about, but I think most of the time you're going to invest in steel, and then you're going to get a return, because that means you could be home, you could sharpen 3 sets of steel, all at 5/8, and you can interchange them, in the whole weekend you're good to go. And I think you've made your money back on a missed weekend of hockey.
Yeah, that panic moment when you're on a tournament. I mean, I remember being in Lake Placid, which we'd gone there several times. I went there as a kid, and then I brought my own kid there. And it makes sense because there's only 12 weeks a year that place is hockey bonkers, and then it shuts down. But you're there and there's 100 teams, And like, you're like, there's no place to get my skate sharpened. How's this possible? They're like, oh yeah, some guy used to have a truck and parked it here, but he's not here anymore. That store's closed and this store's whatever. Like, you can't imagine the anxiety as a parent when your kid loses an edge and you're far from home. And now there's like,
and you spent all that money. Let's not forget that.
And you can't predict when the next game is. You could have 2 games back to back.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. I have a question about positions, forwards, defensemen, goalies. Are there certain sharpening differences? Is it more of a skating style than a position when you go to get your kids skate sharpened, depending on what position they play?
Yeah, I think it probably generally boils down to like player preference in terms of like, do they like, you will hear people, or, you know, we've even said before, like, you know, you'll hear defensemen who tend to prefer a slightly deeper hollow because their job is to prevent the movement of another player. Yeah. And so if you're going to try to like push somebody away from the front of the net or stop somebody on a breakaway, you want an edge you can rely on. Whereas if you're a forward, you want to be able to kind of like slide laterally a little bit on your edges to be able to like wait for like a one-timer pass and just drift. Defensemen don't drift as much. But I would say it probably mostly boils down to, as a player, do you like a really sharp edge? How strong are you? Right. So you'll have people, you know, we've heard, or you probably look it up, like we've heard like Ovechkin tends to like a deeper hollow than you would suspect for how big of a human he is, how big of a strong of a man he is. But he's also got the strength to overcome whatever friction is there. Right. So I skate on 5/8 like Lee, but I have guys that I skate with that are over an inch, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So let me dive in here. This is the point of the episode. I got to give the big kind of disclaimer or the big moment for the parents listening. Okay. If you, as the guardian, are in the mindset of, I can give my kid a secret advantage by knowing this information. If your kid's under 12, I'm going to give you this disclaimer now. You can absolutely experiment with these things, but do not put yourself in a position where you think, I'm going to give my kid an advantage. Because here's the truth about skate sharpening, gang. If you're not the one in the skates, you have no idea how they feel for that person. All right. And Russ, you just bring up a great point. Like, you can go, well, Ovechkin uses this. Well, Ovechkin is 220 pounds and 6 whatever. Your kid is 90 pounds. All right. And 5'1". It does not work that way. All right. The truth is this, and this is the other part of the disclaimer. Your kid has to just learn how to skate, period. Right? Like 12 and under, having sharpened skates is insanely important. And knowing this information is an advantage. But your kid has to learn how to skate. All right. When they get older than 12, and there's some variance on that, that's a great time to start, when your kid can really communicate. Like, hey, why don't we go to a stick and puck and try 3 or 4 different hollows and see what you feel, see what you like. Your kid will know right away, oh, that feels much better. But like, you can't be the dad or mom at home thinking, oh, if I get my kid in 5/8, they're going to fly. Well, your kid can't skate. Kid's not even great at skating yet. That's another part of this too, is as you evolve as a skater, your preferences are going to change. So I'm saying this as a disclaimer again. It is so important you're aware of hollows. It's so important you're aware of like this hack. It's not really a hack anymore, bringing multiple sets of steel to a game, all right, or a practice. It's so important to understand, profiles do exist. I'm kind of with you, Russ. I don't think there's enough there to prove to me that that's a be all end all. Not to mention, I think profiles, the more you skate, you can lose them. Correct. So there's aspects there, but by far and by and large, learning the art of skating is the most important skill. And if you have the tools of the trade to sharpen your skates, your kid, that's what gives them an advantage. Right. But you got to let them feel what works for them, and what works for you or somebody else may not work for them. We're all different, especially, Russ, I'll throw this to you, between the ages of 10 and 14, where your kid's body is changing by the hour, right? What they're in at 10 and 14 could be dramatically different, not to mention their foot size, right? Like, that's another thing we didn't even talk about. Like, the bigger your foot, the longer the steel, the different, changes things. Right. So I don't know if there's a question in here. I'm just kind of making the point because I don't want people listening to this
It's
thinking
a discussion,
no,
Lee.
yeah, profile, hollow, got it. This is the thing. My kid's going to be perfect in this edge. Like, no, you got to feel these things out. Right. And at the end of the day, like I said, you start with something, half usually is the default, and you build from there. Right, Russ? I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking from the younger half. When you get to the older half, this is actually a different discussion.
I was thinking of a variant of what you're saying, which is, when we talked about like really expensive equipment versus affordable equipment and what does it buy you and profiles and which hollow to choose to give yourself an advantage if you don't have a fundamental kind of talent or what you have there. But you often hear this, like if you give the Hughes brothers $400 skates and $100 stick, they're going to probably still look like the Hughes brothers, right? But
just annoyed.
If you give them lost edges, they're hosed just like a beginner house league player. Like you can do nothing if you can't turn left. If every time you turn left you fall, it's going to affect the highest level NHL player to the lowest level person. And so like hammering home this, like what advantage can you give your kid is make sure every time they step on the ice that they have good, reliable edges. Because everything else builds from there. Like if the coach is having them do like this drill or that drill or this acceleration or this, if they don't have edges to rely on, there is such a disadvantage.
When the other half of this is consistency. All right. And one of the things, and I'm going to say this annoys me as a coach. I'll go to a mom or dad. Hey, when was the last time you had their skate sharpened? Oh, like a month ago. And I'm like, well, we've been on the ice a lot over the last month. And it's like, well, we're just waiting for them to dull. That's what I hear. I'm waiting for them to dull out and then we'll get them sharpened. I'm like, I actually don't recommend that.
Yeah, I think you've missed that window.
Yeah. So you want consistency of sharpening. Now, do you have to do them after every skate? Absolutely not, right? You don't have to do that. I mean, some players do them after every period, obviously at the NHL level. But my point is that, like, I'm looking for consistency because what you do is when you let the ball, you're not giving the kid consistency to learn how to use those edges, right? I mean, look, my son's a goaltender. We don't have the luxury of him not having his edges in the net. If he loses his edge in the net, we're having a bad day. It doesn't. You think it's bad as a forward or a defenseman? If the goalie can't skate, you're having a bad day. All right.
An analogy I was just thinking of, again, never even used this before, but because again, there are parents that they're not the ones skating, so they can't. It's very hard for them to understand it. And when the skates get sharpened, is when it's like almost convenient for them. Like, oh well, I wasn't planning to go over there where the skate shop is until next week.
Right.
It'd be like, so to someone who doesn't skate, it'd be like if I removed the steering wheel from your car. That's what not having edges does. It
That's a great one. Yeah.
You
that is a good one.
Like where could you go without a steering wheel? You'd be able to back out of your garage and then right off a cliff. Like,
I think a note to take away, right, is you can't schedule your skate sharpening. Like it is what it is. Like, and I think when I talk to parents, like it's funny how like blade sharpening, skate sharpening of blades is so. It's actually behind a lot of other industries, right? I mean, like if you're a football player, you knew that you would wear different cleats, and the technology of wearing, like when you're wearing your cleats, whether you're wearing high or lows or deep or hollow, like those are depending on field conditions. My wife's family's all skiers. Like they'd be shocked if I didn't sharpen and wax my skis. I look like a whole different skier. Right. Like I literally, if you take your skis out of the garage and you throw them on once a year and you ski down a mountain, you will not ski as you almost feel like a skier if you get them sharpened and waxed. You're like, oh my God, like this, that's the light bulb. So I think, in the world of skate sharpening, going back to like how the parents can't feel your feet as a child, you don't know sometimes until you know. Like you don't even realize that the skates were dull until you get them sharpened. And I think this is where the ability to have the technology there to say, not only can I flip my blades out on a regular basis, whether they're sharp or dull, I don't have to wait. It's my schedule, but I can also then adapt to the kid that hits the goalpost with his skate. And it's the whistle blows, the kid gets skate over, you pop a piece of steel out and pop a steel in, and they're playing again. There is no, like, and I think, Russ, that was what you were saying, right? The anxiety as a parent sitting in the stand saying, this kid's got to sit here for another 45 minutes, unable to move across the crease. Like, to me, I don't know, that's worth a lot to me. Like, that's worth a lot of getting that out of my, my worry piece.
But it doesn't have to exist anymore. It doesn't have to be a worry anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, I'm not cutting you off. It's like, we don't have to have that worry anymore.
This problem.
Yeah, we've solved it. That's what makes me kind of nuts.
I have another question about ice conditions and if that can affect how your edges feel. Because, families travel from rink to rink. Sometimes the ice is hard, sometimes it's soft. And I can remember my daughter complaining one time the ice was very soft. I need to get my skate sharpened. We just got your skate sharpened. My edges don't feel right. Can that play a role?
It does. At the very highest level, they actually test the ice and they may alter skate sharpenings for very small changes in temperature.
Huh.
The general rule, and anybody that's ever played pond hockey will tell you, like, the more kind of humid and moist and less cold the ice is, the less edges really matter. So, like, you can go out and play a weekend pond hockey tournament, like, with pretty banged up edges because you're just kind of walking on the ice anyway. The ice is so soft, you can kind of dig in without much effort.
Okay.
And then the harder the ice goes, the more critical edges are, I would say. But for most rinks, like, unless you are playing pond hockey in like terribly humid, hot, warmer weather, most rinks, you're in the band of ice temperature that a skate sharpening is critical. You can go out with the skate sharpening that you're most comfortable with. And then I was thinking of another point in that last conversation we were just having, which is, I wonder if there's probably an age range, Lee, like you were suggesting, like in this like 8 to 10 or somewhere in there, where there's a possibility that kids at that age don't know if they're having like an off day or they're tired or not feeling right. Like, they're falling, and I don't know if they can verbalize that the reason why they're having trouble in this game or this practice is because an edge is lost.
Yeah.
Like, that may be a lot to put on a kid to kind of, whereas when you get older, like, you're like, I turn this way, I go down. If you're 6 years old, you might just be like, I don't know, mom or dad, I'm having an off day, and then you get the crazy parents that are like, we paid for this camp. We need you to focus. We need you to get the bed on time. We need you to eat right. That's why we told you to get up. Like, they might just have a lost edge.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up.
That does happen.
Yeah. As a coach, we can usually tell, and I'll tell you how I can tell is because when I have a player that doesn't usually fall down and they're only falling on their left side. Yeah. To me, that's like, hey, when was the last time you got their skate sharpened? Or I might ask the kid, hey, did you step on the bench? Did you step on or my favorite one in youth hockey, young hockey, is I'll be on the bench and I'll hear this like clang, clang, clang. And I look down and the kid's smacking his steel against the steel on the bench underneath the bench. And a lot of times I'll just look and I'll kind of nod my head and be like, yeah, okay, that's not going to be good.
Hey, try working in a rink your whole life. And after like the Zamboni gets out to do the ice in between sessions at a public session, every member of the public is walking into the stands or the concrete.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like this is going to be a long night. But I think
only they put signs up saying not to do that, Mike.
No, it doesn't matter. Right. They move those signs. But Russ, I do miss the bliss of not knowing, right? I think I miss the ability to say, it doesn't matter if I skated 3 hours on the pond on Saturday and then my son had a game Sunday morning at the Iceplex, with the brand new ice and the treated, chemically leveled ice resurfacer. So can you just talk about, like, what would you say to a parent? Like, if you just want to say, I want to keep my blades sharp, I want to keep my blades in great condition for the longest possible time, what are some things we can do as parents that would extend and put ourselves and put our kids in a good place to get good habits about maintaining their blades?
Without this sounding super self-promotional for Sparx, it's going to be hard.
That's okay.
But because I have access to the product, right, as any one of our, customers does, and I'm putting in the effort. I play 2 or 3 times a week, and it's going to sound crazy, and I'm not a professional hockey player by any stretch. I always sharpen my skates. I put 2 cycles, 2 to 3 on my skates every single time I play, because, obviously I'm in a different situation than a customer is in terms of having to pay for it. But even if I was paying for it, maybe it's 50 cents, maybe. And to know that I'm going to go put in this effort to get there, to get changed, to get on the ice, to invest the time. It's such a small insurance policy on such a big investment of time to be ready for it. And it takes 2 minutes. And so in the time I take my bag and put it in the car, I've eliminated that anxiety around I wonder if my last skate, how did I feel? Did I feel like I had a good edge? Because I play a lot. I will occasionally not sharpen them on the way out. And I'll be like, how was that last skate? How did I feel? And so I eliminate all those questions. It's like any sort of person that has a compulsive, behavioral thing. You take your keys out and you put them by the door. There's things in your life that will create anxiety, and I can eliminate all of that pre-skate anxiety by putting 2 cycles.
I think that one point when you have access, right? Like me, I have access to unlimited rolls of tape. I literally retape my stick every single time I use it. It's just something I do. It's a habit. But I think for other people, even if you have a sharpener at home, I look at the culture of figure skating. You will not see a figure skater have a pair of skates if they're not standing on the ice without a skate guard and without their blades being dry, right? And I think it's because there's this piece in the figure skating community, in that culture, that there's certain gurus of sharpening figure skates, and they have to go to them, because that goes back to the point of now you have to schedule your life around somebody else and what their technology brings or what their expertise brings. And I think that's I guess that was really my question, was more like a player coming into the rink, how important, and maybe just even for the life of the boot and the life of the tuck and all the mechanics and everything, and the blade itself, the steel. Getting skate guards, drying your skates, treating your skates as if they're not just a piece of equipment you throw in the bottom of the bag wet, right? And then the next practice, 3 days later, you take them.
I take the footbeds out every single time, because if you leave that footbed in there full of water, it's going to rot the skate out. All those rivets holding on the blade holder itself, the white part typically. I use soft covers. Because my skates are not really in covers for very long. They're in covers when I get done sharpening. I put a skate soaker on them. They go in my bag. I dress with the skate soaker on, then I take the skate soaker off. I walk to the ice. I play. I come back. I actually don't even put the skate soaker on when I put them in my bag. Probably could. And then I get home. I dry the blades, take out the footbeds, and hang them back up again.
Excellent.
I think leaving hard guards on there for very long is going to rust stuff out.
I'm glad you mentioned, because I see that all the time. I see so many families just put the hard guards on, throw it in the bag, and they don't even completely dry it. And why are you rotting your blades? Okay, you're spending all this money on these good blades. You're getting them sharpened, but that littlest thing, the maintaining, is so important.
Yeah, keeping your skates dry.
Well, it's so funny, and I almost think about it a little differently too. Is what Russ, I love your routine, Russ, and we've actually had a whole episode about routines like this, just about when you come home if you forgot anything, and before you leave if you're gonna forget anything, because there wouldn't be anything on the rack. You look at the rack. Everything's filled on the rack, and then I leave. Everything's off the rack. So I think it's one of those easy things to build. And we've had a whole episode on just, when do you get your kids to start taking care of their own equipment and getting themselves dressed and things. I think that's a great piece of it, that, your child understanding oh, wow, okay, by the way, these skates are $300, $400, $800, $1,000. They're going to last longer. They're going to be in better condition. You're going to feel more comfortable in them. And wow, if you have a Sparx machine at home, imagine being able to come home, you pop your blades out, you sharpen them, you put them back in your skate, and you're ready for the next game, like almost like a fireman. Like you're ready to go. The bell goes off, you throw your stuff in, and you go. And I think it's just like one of those things where it makes your life so much easier and controlled, because we all know that once all the other uncontrollables are there, this is something we can actually take control of and have the technology to use it.
Yeah, now I'm going to get to this now because I know the people out there are asking. And Russ, I do appreciate your, you understand you're a guest here and you're trying not to sell your product. I'll sell your product for you for the people listening here, because I think it's important that they understand. I think it's the number one question I get about Sparx and at-home sharpening is like, is it worth it? And I tell people it's a pretty simple equation. All right. If you have, follow me here, if you have one skater in your house, you just have to do the math on how long you think they're going to play, how often you're sharpening their skates. I think we've proven today that needs to be probably a little more often than you think. And just do the math of this is what a skate sharpener costs for my house. This is what it's going to cost at the rink. And you do that math. Now, if you've got 3, 4, 5 skaters in your house, this thing pays itself off in less than a season. All right. And I've done the math on this. You can do it too. You just have to do how many times you're getting these skates sharpened. And that's just the financial piece. I'm not even talking about peace of mind, consistency of sharpening, and the advancements that continually happen with these machines. And again, Sparx is what disrupted this in the first place. So thanks for that. No, joking aside, like it's been a wonderful disruption, right? The way we've been aware now of skate sharpening. You said it at the top of the episode, how aware you became of these things. I think we all are now. So I'm going to say this again. If you're listening to this show, you're clearly a family that's invested in this game, both literally and figuratively. This is a worthy investment for your home, especially if you have multiple skaters in the house. All right. I mean, that's the part of the conversation that boggles my mind. It's like, what are you waiting for? If that's the case. I'm going to make sure we say this again. This is not a paid advertising episode. I'm saying this from my heart right now. Okay. Wow. Like we invited Russell on to talk about skate sharpening, but I got to tell you, the consistency alone for me and my kids of knowing exactly what I'm getting. That was the first thing I noticed when I got a sharpener, a Sparx machine in my house, was, wow, every time I step on the ice now, it is exactly the same. Yeah. Every single time. I could not say that with confidence when I was going to a different person. Now, if you had a guy or a woman that did them consistently every time, your person, you might get that feeling. But the truth is, you're going to be at away rinks. You're going to be at different places. This solved the problem.
Yeah. Okay. I have two more data points for you, just to, like, I think everything you said is 100% accurate. I think an interesting observation is, so we have like a little over 125,000 consumers have this product. That's a lot of people. It's like 3 stadiums full of consumers that own this product. And so when we go to a show like Let's Play Hockey in Minnesota, where, I mean, the percentage of people that don't own Sparx is actually smaller than the percentage of people that do.
Right,
it's like every other, So we will be talking to somebody that doesn't own the product, and somebody that does own the product will come over, and the person will be doing math and stuff like you're doing, like, oh, how do I justify this? And the person that owns it will come over and say, I did the same thing and I waited too long.
Right, exactly.
It is absolutely not about saving money. And this is thousands of people will say, once you own this, all of those thoughts about saving money kind of go out the window.
That's a good point,
Russell. The convenience and the reliability and how much time of your life you get back, how much happier your kids are, like that trumps everything. But it can't prevent human nature before you own it to be like, oh, I've got 3 people once a week, blah, blah, blah. So one data point is pretty much everyone that owns it says it has nothing to do with the money once they own it. And you'd have to like kill them to get the product out of their hands because they would never give it up. So that's one point. What was the other one that I wanted to mention? Oh, shoot.
What's that? While you're thinking about that,
I'll jump in, though.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just because I had been a Sparx user, owner. I mean, I bought my first Sparx for my team, and it was because I said, I'm buying a Sparx machine. I'm going to buy 15 different rings, and each family owns their own. So I think that was like at the time, I don't know, it was like $60 or something. Like, so each family would buy their own. Again, I was kind of like, I geeked out about it. I'm like, listen, I got this thing in my garage. Don't worry about it. You know, like what Russ was saying, like the technology that the blades could pop out. I didn't need any stinky boots in my house. I would just take your blades and that would sharpen them and I'd give your blades back. And I think, you know, for me, like I didn't even pay for the machine really. The machine just paid for itself in one day by collecting one sharpening fee from every family. So that part was easy. But I think, you know, from somebody who's in a lot of different ice program, arena programs and a lot of different organizations, the ones that are now using the Sparx commercial machines and the ability to say, listen, if you don't even own your own machine, right, but you have the ability now to take 3 sets of steel to somebody you know is going to have the same sharpening every single time, that set of steel goes in there. Because again, not everybody can put a Sparx machine in their house. Not everybody has the access to say, well, do I really need the convenience? But I think, you know, being able to go to a consumer that uses this product and the technology and say, hey, here's my 3 sets of steel, sharpen them up. They're the exact same every single time, and they're at level, and then they take them with them, right? So it's the same kind of idea of being able to go to the one place that has and I think it keeps coming back to consistency. I want to be able to pop my blades in the first period and change my blades in the second, and it's the exact same blade, the exact same feel, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And I think that's such a huge peace of mind for coaches, parents, players, especially. It just brings the technology to a place where like there really isn't an excuse to be at any level of hockey with blades that aren't ready to play.
I'll add something, Mike. You said you've had the product for a really long time. We were really proud of ourselves because the other day we searched on eBay just to see what you know Sparx machines were out there, and a Generation 1 machine that was produced like 2 months after our Kickstarter ended sold for more than the person paid for it when they bought it on the Kickstarter. So that's a 10-year-old machine that the person made money on selling. So I know it comes into my calculus. Like if you do go into the math, like I remember buying some big fancy lawnmower that I shared with a neighbor. And we eventually, like, it went into my thoughts was like, hey, if this is a totally bad idea, I can always sell it and recoup some of my cost. And not like I'm trying to compete with my own products that we sell from our website. But like if I was a parent going like, oh, should I buy this? I guarantee you if you buy it, you'll never sell it. But just know in the back of your head, you could go on eBay and probably sell it, you know, 3 months from now if it's a bad idea for what you paid for it.
Yeah, it's a testament to the quality for sure. And again, Russ, I'm glad that you brought up the points that you made, right? Because again, the equations on why or how much money it takes is trumped by the consistency and the quality and the stress relief that it creates. So I would just say this: if you're a serious hockey family, this is part of you being serious. Right. That's how I would say it.
And I think in 5 or 10 years, we will be looking back at this episode laughing because this has gone from in the beginning when we started the company that, you know, very few people believed we could do what we were saying we could do. Like there was like this, like, hey, we're gonna build the Keurig of skate sharpeners that's in your house, and you press a button and you get skate sharpened, and everybody talked about like these old vending machines and rinks, and it was like impossible for us to raise money because of that precedent that had been set. And it was, you know, like a fantasy, like we were going to have Sparx. And now 10 years later, like a lot of people have this. And I think 10 more years, this will be just every family has a sharpener or their neighbor does. It won't be something like we're talking about now, which is like, you should go do this. This will be a conversation we're not having in 5 or 10 years.
And Russ, what do you see in the next couple of years as far as skate technology? Where do you see it headed? What's in the works for Sparx?
So for Sparx, you know, we continue to innovate around the sharpener. We have now our products are intelligent, smart. And so we have different features that are soon to be launched on the sharpener that will retroactively make everyone who owns a connected Sparx machine have those additional features. So we'll continue to make the features expanded. We'll probably be working on lighter machines, smaller machines, different price point machines, continuing to research skate sharpening itself as a technology. What things can we do to the blade to increase speed on the ice? We do a lot of research around hollows, around profiles, looking to improve performance. And then there's a lot of changes coming right now. We have a new entrant with Warrior now has a skate, and they hadn't had it historically, and True has a new owner. And so I think there's a lot of competitiveness in the skate industry. We've seen a lot of expansion in blade technology. People have blades of different materials, different coatings. And so we'll continue to stay on top of that, make sure our sharpeners can handle everything that all these manufacturers are throwing into the market.
Well, you had mentioned about how a lot of people have this. Just for those of you listening, people have it. I've seen teams have it. I've seen pro shops have it. I've seen professional teams have it. When my national team goes on the road, which is often, we have a Sparx machine with us somewhere where the players can get their skates sharpened. All right. And, the goal with the episode today was to educate all of you on skate sharpening. And I think we've absolutely accomplished that. I mean, Russ, I do want to throw it to you one more time for if they're leaving this episode and there's just one piece of advice, right? Like, okay, you've convinced me that this is important. What would that piece of advice be for the listener?
It's kind of where we started in the beginning. Make sure every time your player goes out that you've either just recently done a skate sharpening or you've checked those edges. Because if you have a really young player, they may not know they've lost an edge because it's the foundation of everything. And the only way that you really maintain edges is to have sort of like unfettered access to a skate sharpener, because you can lose your edge at any point, and the next time you're going to be on the ice may not be a convenient moment for you to get the sharpening in between. And so, I built this machine to solve a very personal at the time problem that I wanted the ability to sharpen skates at any moment because I was losing edges at inconvenient times. And I think now we've created a product that's universal and everybody can own it. And I think, we've talked about it all through this episode. If you don't have sharp, reliable edges, everything else is kind of a waste of time at that point.
You're a disruptor and an innovator, my friend. Yeah. What was that, Christie?
It's never at a convenient moment, right?
No. Maybe if you win a championship and step off into the concrete with the Stanley Cup in your hands, that would be the only convenient time to ruin your edges.
It's like back to my analogy. Like, when's it convenient that we pull the steering wheel off your car?
Exactly. Right. That was a great analogy. Thank you, Russ.
I'll say this to the parents listening. If you're nodding your heads at home, don't worry. Russ is going to join us on a ride to the rink, so he'll talk directly to your kids about this as well. But Mike and Christie, anything before I close this out?
Well, this was a great episode. I'm so glad you were able to share all your knowledge and expertise and insight. It's one of those things that it's kind of the last thing you think about as a hockey family. You're worried about what kind of skates to get, all the equipment, the techniques that your kids are learning. And it's so basic, but so essential. The edge, it's everything, parents. So pay attention, get educated, and you're really going to see a huge difference in the way that your kids skate if you get the edges right.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I've said this to every customer I've ever had. If you are going to power skating classes and specialty clinics and you're not taking care of your edges, and if you're a power skating coach out there and you're not asking your kids about their sharpening and their edges, you're really just taking their money. I don't care. There's no excuse to me. There's no reason why players should not know that they're getting on the ice with level, sharpened steel that's going to enhance their performance. And if you're paying $800, $900, $1,000 for, in 2 weeks you go to a hockey camp and you have blades that aren't sharp, then you're just wasting your money, and you're actually just putting a lot of stress on your player. Again, it's a very simple thing to do. It's a very simple investment to make, whether you're going out and getting it done at a quality sharpening, person, or you get your own machine. Just get those blades, dialed in, and get your return on your investment.
Well, when we were talking about this episode, I'll end it on this. Christie sent the whole team a message that this is going to be a sharp, cutting edge episode. All right. And I told her to get a grip.
Certainly not dull.
Not dull at all. Now, there you go. So for that, I think we'll end it on that one. This has been a great episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Look, if you've got questions about skate sharpening, email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. We'll forward them to Russ to get the answers, just in case we don't have them. Remember, you can always text us using the description. There's a link in the description for this episode where you can text us anything you want. There it was. And we'll get back to you. But for Russ Layton from Sparx Hockey, Christie Casciano-Burns, Mike Bonelli, I'm Elias. We will see you all on the next episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.